back to World Crisis Radio. Webster Tarpley reporting tonight from Beirut. Take a look at tarpley.net. See my appearances on Syrian television. I also had on the second night I was here, I did a unit with Alex Jones on the situation. So here we are in the Middle East, and from the Middle East, things look different. And again, the problem that the State Department doesn't want to talk about is the status of Christians in the Eastern Mediterranean and in this area. Here's an interesting thing: we met tonight a member of the Lebanese nobility. This is Prince Talal Arslan. He's a Druze. Now, this is one of the ethnic communities here in Lebanon, because you have Maronite Christians. That's, I guess, General Aoun, Michel Aoun, A-O-U-N. We've talked about him in the past, the de Gaulle of Lebanon. You've got the Hezbollah with Nasrallah. That's the Shiite pro-Iranian group. They're very big in South Beirut. And then you've got some other groups. You've got the Druzes, and you've got some Sunni Muslims too. Now, the Druzes are a special group on their own within Islam. They're like the Alawites. They're Islam, but they're Islam with a difference. So we got to hear a very interesting talk from Prince Talal, and his starting point, well, maybe just one or two other things. People may remember Walid Jumblat. Jumblat is the guy who gets the press attention in the United States as being one of the leaders of the Druze. There are really two families. One is the Arslans, and the other is the Jumblats, and they've had quite a few faction fights over the years, I guess we could say. But we got a very interesting briefing from the prince, again, how the world looks to him. One of the things he said at the beginning was, in 1975, the United States sent a guy called Dean Brown. He was a State Department official. This was during the Ford administration, but of course this was Henry Kissinger running the Ford administration and running the State Department too. Henry Kissinger sent this guy Dean Brown over to Lebanon, and they talked to the relevant factional leaders in this very interesting Lebanese society. And this was the father of the gentleman we talked to tonight, the prince. So the prince's father, who was at that time one of these two heads of the Druze community, this Dean Brown said to him, look, the United States now thinks that all Christians should be expelled from Lebanon, and all Christians, this means a lot, because if Beirut is 3 million people, well, there must be 1 million Christians, or maybe 1.5 million. It's about half of the city, the northern half of Christians, mainly Maronite, but also other kinds. So what would it mean to expel these people? And it was not a theoretical statement. It was that at the time he said this, he said, the United States has ships standing by offshore, and we're going to take all the Christians in Lebanon to the United States, Australia, New Zealand, Argentina, and other places that they may want to go. What is the point of this? Well, there's the Lebanese Constitution of 1944, which essentially apportions the principal executive offices and legislative leadership roles according to the community that you're in. And I guess it's that the prime minister is going to be a Sunni Muslim, whereas the president is going to be a Christian. President is sort of the ceremonial head of state. The prime minister is the one with the real power, but the president can do certain things too. That's the Constitution of 1944. And then ever since this stuff was happening, I was aware that Kissinger hated the Lebanese model of tolerance, of a kind of compromise among the various ethnic, religious, and other groups. So this was the starting point for the prince's briefing, right? Prince Talal Arslan. His family are the people who succeeded in driving the Crusaders out. I don't mean the people that fought the Crusaders when they got here. Not Saladin, not what the battles that went on at the beginning of the Crusades, but when the Crusader states had sort of been attrited for a while, At a certain point, they're kicked out. And the Principality of Lebanon, and Lebanon becomes something ruled by a prince, and that's the Arslan family. That's the guy who is the descendant of that we met tonight. And his goal is pan-Arabism, or just Arabism. And his idea is, I think what has been understood in a place like Lebanon is that the competing absolute claims of the various religions are incompatible. And there are things in Islam and Christianity, these various kinds, and so forth, things that you're absolutely required to do and not to tolerate, which are mutually contradictory. In other words, one religion gives you a completely different line on this than another. And the problem is that going to lead to civil war? And the people in France in the late 1500s, right after the French Wars of Religion, around the time of King Henry IV, who basically led the school, these were called the politique. And I think what you're seeing is that there are people in Lebanon who are becoming politique, in the sense that they say, we cannot allow religious differences to cause chaos, civil war, and destroy our society. It's just not worth it. There's got to be a way to contain the apocalyptic elements and the conflicting elements in these different societies. So the thesis, I think, of Prince Arslan is that Lebanon needs all of its minorities. And from the point of view of the Druze, he said, well, I'm a Druze, I'm a Muslim, and I can be accepted by the Shiites up to a point. But the Sunnis, he says, especially the Sunni fanatics, won't accept me as a Muslim. They won't allow me to be recognized as a Muslim in the first place. So his basic idea was avoid religious questions, and this is something that we saw also with the Ba'ath Party in Syria. The Ba'ath Party, the governor of Homs, was really the only guy who said that most of the shooters in the death squads who were doing the sniping from the rooftops, killing people in Homs, he said, well, most of them are Syrian, or they're all Syrian, more or less. That's simply not true, as far as I can see. And also, if you ask him, do you think that the killers are fundamentalists? Are they Salafists? Are they from the Muslim Brotherhood? There's not much interest in following that if you're a member of the Ba'ath Party, because the Ba'ath Party approach is that reality is secular or should be secular. So that's how he looks at it. And the idea is, he says, we need all the minorities are needed, and I guess we could say the Druze are one of the smaller of these minorities. And I think the idea is that if you had the island of Maronite Christianity in this generally Islamic area, if that were to be removed, if the Maronites were to be driven out, then there wouldn't be much hope either for the Druze or these other groups, and that might include the Kurds. And I think that there's a significant group of Kurds inside Lebanon, not as much as in Iraq, but there's a sort of an island or an offshoot of them as well. So I think the interesting thing we heard from the Prince is the U.S. constantly plays the card of ethnic division. We know this, right? Divide and conquer. Play Shiite against Sunni, Alawite against Druze, Christian against Muslim. One interesting word that I learned tonight is the fitna. The fitna is the murderous war of religion that takes place between the Sunnis and the Shiites. Right? We would say a war of religion or a confessional war. And we haven't had that in the West since 1648. But there were people in France who, before the 30 Years' War, essentially came out and said, we cannot let the society be torn apart. And I guess this is one of the genius of Cardinal Richelieu, was that Richelieu would say, he said there are two conceptions of religion. One is the Spanish one, where the religion serves the Spanish goals at the Spanish Empire. And then he says, then there's the French one, where you can be a Catholic, but you don't have to be in favor of Spain. Preacher of the Spanish. So he said, we need to have Catholics in the state. So I think that's the idea, that the U.S. often so long on this religious division scheme that people are doing a backlash. Michel Aoun, one last thing, Michel Aoun has promoted contact between young Maronite Christians and young Shiites, and that seems to have reached the gap there remarkably. So there are Iranic tendencies in Lebanon.